الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. ای پادشه خوبان داد از غم تنهایی، دل بی تو به جان آمد وقت که بازایی. ای پادشه خوبان داد از غم تنهایی، دل بی تو به جان آمد وقت است که بازایی. مشتاقی و مهجوری دور از تو چنانم کرد که از دست بخواهد شد پایان شکیبایی. ابن الحسن روحي فداك متى ترانا ونراك. يا ابن الحسن روحي فداك متى ترانا ونراك. الله قولك في عكوية إمام الحجة عن الزوجين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Imran, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Hasten towards forgiveness from your Lord, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rush towards it. If anything is worthy of rushing towards and being in a hurry for, it is the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the result of that, مغفرة من ربكم, and what is the result? وجنة, the garden in which the width of it عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين. The width of it is the heavens and the earth, and it has been made specifically and prepared for the pious ones, the muttaqeen. Somebody asked, Ya Rasulullah, if the heaven, if the paradise, if the garden is, the width of it is the heavens and the earth, meaning everywhere, then where would the hellfire be? Then the Prophet said, Subhanallah, meaning something is so obvious if you think about it properly. And then he said that if the night is when the day comes, where does the night go? When the daylight comes, where does the night fit, or where does it go? Same analogy is used here in the sense that if the heavens and the earth contain the paradise and the garden, it doesn't mean that they cannot at the same time contain the hellfire, because they go in different, we're in a different realm. In this world, we know that in the same place we have day followed by night, in the same place, and in the hereafter, in the same place you can have hell and heaven, because they are different concepts to what we understand. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this muttaqeen, who are they? This garden that's prepared for the muttaqeen. Some of their characteristics. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. The first thing is that they spend their money for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Quran speaks about other types of infaq, that it goes to waste. If it's not spent for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's going to waste. They spend their money whether it's in hardship or at ease. When they have a lot or when they have little, it doesn't make a difference. In all cases, they spend and they're generous. What else? وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. And those who control and restrain their anger. Al-ghayz, different to ghadab. Ghadab is a characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to himself as having ghadab. عَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ. So he has ghadab over the non-believers, over those who the oppressing people and who oppress others. They get the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to understand that ghadab is different to ghayz. Here, these people, al-kadhimin al-ghayz, they restrain their anger. Ghadab is not anger as commonly understood, although they say that they get the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is wrong. Some say they get the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we have to understand is ghadab is the decision to punish, the decision to retaliate. Someone does the wrong thing, we make a decision that he has to get punishment for what he did. That is ghadab. The will, iradatullah, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish the criminals and the mischief makers, that is what ghadab is. Ghadab is not a state that comes, as we say, عارضة على Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not like he's merciful and then out of a sudden he gets angry. وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. He doesn't change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's always merciful, and this mercy does not go away from Him. It's not something that adds to Him. That's part of Him. This is Tawheed as-Sifat. Is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and His Sifat are Him, not something new adding to Him. Therefore, ghadab cannot be something, anger cannot be something that occurs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to understand that. He is far from that. From His justice, He wills and decides to punish the mischief makers and that is عَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. They have this decision that may have been translated wrongly to anger. That is not what it is. However, the believers may get angry. Us humans, we might get angry. And anger is a situation where we might have, higher blood pressure, we might have, faster, the heart starts beating faster, and so on and so forth. So it affects our physical being, it affects our spirit. It is something that occurs and it changes us. Nonetheless, the believers put a stopper on it, because kadhm is like putting a stopper on a bottle. That is what it literally means. So it doesn't spill out. And ghayz is here given the description of as if it's in a container that you put a stopper on it and do not allow it to come out. That is restraining it. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, in one story, famous story that many of you are familiar with, one of his servants, a lady who was serving the Imam in his house, she was pouring water for him to wash hands, and as she was pouring the water, she dropped the container and she scarred the head of the Imam, the forehead of the Imam. It was bleeding, and Imam alayhi salam looked up towards her. Being a student of the household of Ahlul Bayt, who was there for many years, had heard the Imam and his advice and his lectures and his recitation of the Holy Quran, straight away she said to him, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. She read the ayah, or part of the ayah. Then he said, كَظَمْتُ غَيْظِي. I already did. I'm not angry. Then she said, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. He said, may God forgive you. عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْكِ. Because I already عَفَوْتُ عَنْكِ. Now I'm praying that God forgives you as well. You made a mistake, may God forgive you. I suppressed and restrained my anger. It never happened in the first place, and I forgive you. I forgave you. Now I'm praying for God to forgive you. Then she said, وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Then he said, you are free for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're free, you're not anymore a slave. You can freely go anywhere you wish. And that is how Imam taught us the fact that ihsan is beyond what is expected. Perhaps وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, Imam forgives her. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. In this case, ihsan, Imam is telling us that ihsan is a step beyond expectations. Because what is expected from you is called ma'roof. I think I may have shared this issue with you, the difference between ma'roof and ihsan. Ma'roof literally means what is known, meaning what people commonly know as normal and expected. Whereas ihsan, the goodness, has to be something different to that. It can't be the same thing. It has to be beyond that. And that is what Imam is teaching us. Last night we were discussing the issue of salam. And I mentioned to my dear brothers and sisters the fact that salam is what brings love between people. And it's something we need in today's society. When we meet each other, we need to come and say salam, assalamu alaikum. If you meet someone who doesn't understand salam, perhaps you can say peace. imagine every Muslim, and perhaps it's something that I would myself try and would like my brothers and sisters to try and share your experiences with me. Start greeting people, non-Arabs and non-Muslims, start greeting them with peace. Saying peace, or peace be upon you, or just the peace. And see what the reaction may be. It's not going to be anything but good, I can assure you. Because you can't come to someone with peace and expect them to get angry or offended. You can't offend someone with salam. What I want to continue from that, in terms of bringing more love in the community, is the issue of ihsan, doing good. One of the acts of ihsan actually is to beat people to salam. That's one of the acts of ihsan. To greet people before they greet you. And the response to the salam is wajib, as you all know. It is wajib, and the minimum is to respond the way he said it. Exactly what they said is to respond. If you add, it's even better. So if someone says to you, Assalamu alaikum, then you might say, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you. You say, peace be upon you and God bless you. Or add something to it. That is what a Muslim is expected to do. In fact, the Imams teach us that responding to it exactly what it is, you haven't matched him. Because he already beat you to what he already is better than you by beating you to it. So if you want to match it, you have to add something. So if he says Assalamu alaikum, to match it, you have to say Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. That's just matching it, because of the fact that he beat you to the salam. The other thing that we should do as Muslims is to do ihsan. So not only greet your neighbors, not only get to know your neighbors, because that's our duty as Muslims. We have to get to know each other, we have to get to know our neighbors. It doesn't matter whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims. We greet them, we get to know them, but also doing ihsan to them, doing goodness to them. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsineen. In so many ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He loves the people, the good doers, the doers of good, the people that always are doing good. Muhsineen are people who always are doing good. They're looking for anywhere to serve and help and do good and accumulate the best thing that we need, the best, what we call tusheh, or the khira. وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. Therefore, they're always trying to find any reason to do good. I know people that they compete on any good deed, including putting, say, prayer mats or turbas. You know, people come to pray. They feel upset if they realize that the guy before them did everything and left nothing for them. Because they want to do good and they realize that everything is done. They feel sad. Or someone is serving food. If they find out that there's nothing that they can do, they feel sad, they get upset. And this is not uncommon and unheard of. Quran speaks about those who come to the Prophet. They want to do something, help the community, help the nation, the ummah. And then when they realize that there's nothing that they can do because they don't have money or they cannot go to the battlefield, they leave and their eyes are shedding tears. This is the description of the Quran. They leave you while there are, because Quran says about them that they are obviously excused, unlike those who come They can do something, they can spend some money because they have it, or they have power and strength to do something and help, but they keep on saying, oh Prophet, please excuse us this time. We have يَسْتَأْذِنُوكَ. They're always asking the Prophet, please excuse us this time. We've got some family issues to take care of. I've had so many issues, so many problems, you know. Anytime you ask them for something, the Prophet asks them, or here, you ask them for something, they're always busy. That's one type of people. But the other type is those who come and they want to do good. And when they realize that there is no good act left for them, they cannot do anything, they get so sad and they start crying. Because they want to do good acts. They want to always find something good and do it. And they know that Wallahu yuhibbul muhsineen. You want to invite people to Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. You want to invite people to get to know the noble character of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The best way is to do ihsan. And when you're asked, you tell people, these are the characteristics of our Prophet. These are the teachings of our Prophet. In the world today, unfortunately, when the name of the final messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, is mentioned, a lot of people, the first thing that comes to their mind is war. The first thing that comes to their mind is terrorism, fundamentalism, all these things. Do you hear of people thinking of generosity when they hear the name of Rasulullah? But read the history. Read the life of Rasulullah. What did he stand for? How could he spread the message in that short time that he lived, and people loving him so much? The water that would drip from his wudu as he was performing the wudu, the water that drips, people would try and catch it and compete over it to get blessings from Rasulullah. Why? Because he was holding the sword on their heads? Do that? No, brothers and sisters. It was because of his noble character, because of his generosity, because of his love, because of his ihsan, the good acts, forgiveness and ihsan all the time. That's why he got known. That's why he became famous. His Ahlul Bayt, the same thing. His companions even. Sometimes when I read, brothers and sisters, when we read stories about the companions of Rasulullah, sometimes I wonder, do we have people like this nowadays? Very rare. And that's why Quran says, ثُلَّةٌ مِّنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنَ الْآخِرِينَ. In terms of the muqarrabeen, the very special ones, there is a good group in the beginning of the time, but in the end of the time there are very few of them. One of those stories is regarding a rich man who was sitting in the gathering where the Prophet was sitting. This man was sitting, and a poor man came and sat next to him. His abaya was spread next to him, and the poor man sat. Part of the leg of the poor man or something went over the abaya of the rich man. So the rich man pulled it. The Prophet saw what happened. He asked him, why did you do that? Did you fear that he will give you the disease of poverty? Or did you fear that you will get dirty? And the man would say, no. Everything the Prophet asked him, he said no. And then the Prophet said, why? Then he realized his mistake and the fact that he didn't treat this poor man well enough and compassionately. He said, Ya Rasulullah, half my wealth is his. Is that good? Then you know what the poor man said? The poor man said, I don't want it. He said, why? He said, أخشى أن يصيبني ما أصابك. I'm worried that what's in you it actually influences me, makes me like you. I fear that your disease becomes contagious. That disease of kibr. You had some arrogance and pride, and you didn't like my body touching your abaya. I fear that this disease gets me too. Imagine that those companions, this guy who doesn't want the wealth, the other guy who gives half of his wealth to the poor because he made a mistake. Do we have people like this? This is the ihsan. This obviously is the influence of Rasulullah. And that's why the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt tell us, you want to bring people towards us, just share our words and our stories. Dhikrana. Our remembrance and stories, and share our words. You want to invite people towards Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, just read the dua that Ahlul Bayt write. Read to them or translate to them the beautiful words of wisdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, and see what the effect of that is. Remember the story of the cliff or the bridge that was broken and people could fall. A human being would do what? Would help others and not allow them to fall. A human being seeing a bridge is broken will not let other people fall. And we want to do the same. We want to invite people in the best possible manner, because sometimes when you come to people and you try and invite them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards the messenger, towards what gives them life, towards what gives them a better society and better communities, sometimes people don't understand, and therefore they get offended, they don't like the advice, they don't like the style, and they start getting sometimes even abusive. But we still have to be patient with that. But the best way that you could invite them, which doesn't get you into trouble, doesn't make them get offensive, is simply by doing ihsan, doing goodness. Very simple. And that is how Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, they were acting and they lived that kind of life that invited people. That Shami, that person from Sham that comes to Medina and he attacks the personality of the Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his father. You so and so, your father so and so. The Imam waits for him. When he's done, he tells him, if you're hungry, we feed you. If you're tired, come and rest in our house. If you're whatever you need, just ask us. If you're in difficulties due to your travel, because obviously you're a traveler, we can help you even with funds, with money. He realizes that this is not the description that I've been given by Muawiyah. Today Muawiyah is still alive. Maybe not the Muawiyah that we know, but people like Muawiyah are still there. And still spreading rumors about and words and attacking the personality of the Prophet, because that was the aim of Muawiyah. He said that the name of Rasulullah after so many years is still on the mimbar, is still on the mi'dana. People still call his name in adhan. I will bury that name. Because of his grudge and hatred, because of what happened in the battle of Badr. They couldn't get over it. Brothers and sisters, if we can't get over our grudge and hatred, it could send us to hellfire. We could be in the army of Muawiyah and Yazid. He couldn't get over it. He said, I will bury the name of the Prophet. People today still doing the same. The enemies of Rasulullah today are doing the same thing. How did the Ahlul Bayt treat them? Did they get the man and let's kill the man? Why did he say that? You say that about my father Amir al-Mu'mineen? Get him companions and finish him. Is that what Imam Hussein said? No. He asked him, you seem to be tired. You're a traveler. Let us help you. Tell us what you need so we can help you. This is the character of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This is how they spread Islam. This is how they spread the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The reality, brothers and sisters, is the best way of inviting people is to first and foremost love people. What the Prophet said regarding Rahmatan lil Alameen, what God said regarding His Prophet being Rahmatan lil Alameen, is what made him the number one personality in the world. Not the Muslims just witnessing that, but also Westerners. Great authors have written that and witnessed that he is the number one personality, the number one influential person in the world that ever happened. How? Through his rahmah, through his akhlaq, through his love. So if you love people, you can do ihsan to them genuinely. Remember I said if you love people, you can do salam genuinely and you get the most reward. If you love people, you can do ihsan to them genuinely. Everyone, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who are on the wrong path, Ahlul Bayt tell us, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says about the followers of his enemies, the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. He says they are orphans. Why? Because they don't have the noble character of Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen, as the Prophet says, Ya Ali, ana wa ant abawa hadhihi al-ummah. Oh Ali, me and you are the fathers of this nation. They don't have these characters, therefore they are orphans. They don't know Rasulullah. They might say, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But in reality, they don't know the Prophet and the characteristics of the Prophet. They don't know Amirul Mu'mineen. And they don't know the Imams. Therefore, they are orphans. And he says, these people are orphans. Bring them and take care of them. Meaning guide them. Invite them in the right way. Introduce Ahlul Bayt to them. Raise awareness. Do ihsan to them. Very simple. My message today is ihsan. Yesterday was salam. Brothers and sisters, I want to be very simple, but I want action. I want people to act, starting from myself, inshallah, and everyone here. Man amila bima ya'lam, one of our greatest scholars, one of his best advice to his students, Ayatollah Bahjat, rahmatullah alayh, was that you just act on the things that you know. That's all what you need to do. I'll keep it very simple. The message is, number one, greet people. Wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You meet someone in public washrooms. Why walk past each other like, excuse the terms, like animals? And perhaps animals aren't like that. I've seen ants. As a kid, I liked watching ants. You know, they pass each other. And as they get to each other, they stop for a second and then they continue. I don't know what they're saying to each other. I wish I did. Like Nabiullah Sulaiman, he knew, but I don't.
They say salam.
They say salam. Perhaps ahsantum. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
They surely say salam, because what salam means is that I submit to the will of God in your matter. And that's definitely what they do. They do submit to the will of God and follow the wahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, we, us humans, the social beings, with so much intellect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, we pass each other and as if we don't see anyone. This is not a characteristic of Muslim. We have to. You pass by a police officer, you pass by anyone in the road, say, greet them in the best possible manner, with a smile, and greet them. And it's charity. Greeting is charity. Very cheap. Doesn't cost you much. I don't know, do words cost? If you nowadays they might calculate, how many muscles did you move, and therefore how many calories you used, but realistically, that's the cheapest, simplest charity. Salam. Greeting. Next is ihsan. This is something beyond just a simple thing. Ihsan depends on your capability. You don't have to share with people half your wealth. Perhaps this was for people at Prophet's time. Maybe you can do that, but that's not what you're expected to do. But do good. Find something that you can do and do it for people. This is ihsan. Let's look at what Ahlul Bayt did as the different forms of ihsan that they were practicing in their life that drew people to them, that made people love them so much and want to be around them so much. In one story and hadith that we have, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he comes to his companions, some of his companions. He says to them, أفضل الأعمال بعد الصلاة. I want to teach you a very simple ihsan. Very simple ihsan. And it's the best action according, he says, صح عندي ما ورد عن رسول الله. Some people were asking or were talking about something that the Prophet had said, and they weren't sure, is that correct? Could it be correct? He said, yes, I consider it true, and I know that this has come from the Prophet, that he said, أفضل الأعمال, the best action after Salat is very simple. إدخال السرور في قلب المؤمن بما أذن الله or بما لا إثم عليه. The best action after Salat, after prayers, is to bring happiness into the hearts of the believers. People. Bring happiness to them. As long as that bringing happiness to them, the action does not entail a sin. Some people like to be clowns, make people laugh. In actual fact, brothers and sisters, as long as you do not commit an act of sin, this is a good thing. You come to a majlis and people are sitting, not majlis hazar, we're talking about gatherings. A gathering, people are sitting, someone is sad or something, then share with them a very polite joke. That's a simple way of making people laugh, making people happy. Not mocking someone so that you make people happy, neither mocking yourself and making fun of yourself to make people happy. Neither of this is good. Making fun of people is haram. Making fun of yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored you. You do not ridicule yourself. No. Neither of this. Very polite jokes. Someone came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. He gave something to the Prophet as a gift. And then he said, straight afterwards, he said, where is the money? So the Prophet smiled after he was saddened by something, and he did this action to bring a smile to the Prophet's face. Then the Prophet actually smiled and was happy. And then one day later on, the Prophet was saddened by something else. And you know what the Prophet said? He said, later, I wish that guy, that old man that came and made that joke with me, comes again and brings happiness to me. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, ihsan could be as simple as that. Bring happiness to people's face. In one way or another. Whatever you can do. You know that someone is happy by a little gift, as little as a flower. Do it for them. A lady, one of the ladies that worked in Imam Hussein's house, one day came and gave him a flower. The Imam gave her a great gift and freed her. They asked him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, so much for so little. She just gave you a flower. Then the Imam said to them that you have to learn that she started the ihsan and she did what she afforded. Therefore, the only thing that I could do is do what I can afford. And therefore, I gave her so much and I freed her. This is the characteristic. This is how Ahlul Bayt were. And this is why people were just loving them so much that even if they worked for them and they would get a great gift and would leave them, would always be remembering them and wishing they were still in their house. Anytime, anywhere they were found, they will ask about them. One of those was a lady that met Al-Aqila Zaynab Salamullah alayha in Kufa. She said, I used to come to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Zaynab Salamullah alayha used to teach me Quran. Do you know them? You said you're from Medina. Do you know these people? Do you know where they are? She said to her, obviously you cannot tell who I am, because the time and the things that I went through has made me so old and so different. You are speaking to Zaynab. People, no matter how far they were always remembering Ahlul Bayt and their characteristics. Imam Hussein says, as simple as that, bring some happiness. And then he himself narrates a story. He said, once I was going past a little farm. As I got to the farm, I watched a slave, a worker who was working in the farm. He was feeding a dog. He was having a bite and feeding the dog a bite, sharing his food with the dog. Then the Imam came to him. He asked him, he said, why are you sharing your food with the dog? He said, I'm bringing happiness to his heart. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings happiness to my heart, because I am a bit sad. He said, what's your problem? He said, I have an owner that makes me work really hard. And I am tired working here for so long, such hard job. And he's not a Muslim. The Imam says to him, you stay here. Who's your owner? He said, he's so-and-so in Medina. Imam goes to the owner with 200 dinar. The money that buys the best slaves, so that the guy cannot say no. He goes to the guy, he knocks his door, the man says yes. When he realizes what the Imam wants, and he knew who the Imam was, he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, O son of Rasulullah. The man wasn't a Muslim. In fact, narrations say he was a Jew. But he said, when he realized what the Imam is there for, and he realized what had happened, he said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, the slave is yours, and the money is yours too. And in fact, that is too little for you. That's all, may all that be sacrificed for you. That's too little. The farm that the slave was working on in is also yours. The Imam said to him, but I gifted you the money. So he said, okay, I accept the gift, but I gifted to the slave. The slave that I have just gifted you, I gifted to the slave. And the Imam said, and I free the slave and gift him the farm. The wife of that man was standing behind watching what was happening. She knew that this is the son of Rasulullah. By then she couldn't help it. She said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And then she said to her husband, and my mahar, my dowry is a gift to you. I don't want it. The husband also entered Islam right then and there, and he said, this house is a gift for you. Look at a step that Imam comes and takes in the house, wanting to help. All of that started from what? The man wanting to give, to bring happiness to a dog. Unfortunately, some Muslims think that dogs, because they are najis, we have to treat them as the worst thing on earth. That is not true, brothers and sisters. Even that act, even bringing happiness and caring about a dog. What about humans that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created? If we have love for them, if we care for them, if we try and help them, if we do ihsan to them, would that not guide them? If Imam Hussein, through that ihsan that he was doing, guided these people, can we not try and do what Imam did and perhaps guide few people, save them from falling into the cliff, from the shafa hufratin min an-nar, from the edge of the cliff into the fire? Can't we do that for them? Can't we help them? It's very simple, just with ihsan. A man comes to Imam Hussein and addresses him with a beautiful poem. He says, لم يخب اليوم من أتاك ومن حرك من دون بابك الحلقة أنت جواد وأنت معتمد أبوك كان قاتل الفسقة. Whoever comes to you, Ya ibn Rasulullah, will not be disappointed. And whoever that shakes the ring of your door will not be disappointed. You are generous and you are one we can rely upon. And your father was one that was the killer and the finisher of the wrongdoers and the oppressors and the transgressors. Then the Imam knew that he wanted help. He gave him so much. He asked for whatever is in the house. Basically, they didn't have bank accounts. He gave whatever there was and gave it to him. Then he said to him, accept this little from us, because now we don't, if things were easier, we would have given you a lot more. But that's what we have. Please accept it from us. And we are apologetic to you. The man grabs the things from the gift and the money from Imam, and he starts crying, and he was weeping. And Imam asked him, is it little? my friend, have I given you little? Is that why you're crying? He said, no, it's because these generous hands, I cannot believe that they will be buried under the sand, and they will not be existing in our world, these generous hands of yours. Sallallahu alayk ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayk ya ibn Rasulillah. Sallallahu alayk ya ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was in this time, the 3 days of Arbaeen according to riwayat, it was a time of renewal of sadness for the ladies and for Imam Sajjad salamullah alayhim. As they were going through all what they were going, all what they could remember is watching what happened on the day of Ashura, going from one place to another and remembering what was happening on that day. Imagine some very sad event occurs to you and then you go back to the place that event happened. How would you feel? That is what they were feeling. From one place to another they were running, and they were going on the graves of their beloved ones and crying and weeping. Sukayna salamullah alayha, the daughter of Imam Hussein, she started weeping and crying over the grave of Aba Abdullah, and she was reading this poem, Ala ya Karbala nudi'ki jisman bila kafanin wala ghuslin dafina. Oh Karbala, we leave a body with you that has no shroud and was not washed and is buried in you. Ala ya Karbala nudak ruhan لأحمد والوصي والأمينة. O Karbala, we leave a soul with you. That is the soul of the Prophet, the soul of Ali, and the soul of Jibreel al-Amin. She was crying and she was weeping and calling her father. وأبتاه وحسينا ومظلوماه وعطشانا. She was weeping and crying, calling her father, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. She fainted on the grave of Aba Abdullah. She fell asleep or fainted, and then after she was awoken, she said, I had a dream. I saw my grandmother Fatima Zahra in the dream. Sukayna says, as she was there, I didn't recognize her first. I asked, who's this lady running and falling as she's running from place to place? They said to me, it is Fatima. I went to her, I said, my dear grandmother, oh Zahra. I started telling her what had happened. Oh, my mother, قتلوا أبي الحسين عطشانا. They slaughtered my father while he was thirsty. جدتا يا زهرا. They killed my brothers, my infant brother, they killed him. My grandmother Fatima, they took us as captives. They beat us on the way. My shoulders are black from their beating, Ya Zahra. As I was telling her, she said, Sukaina, Bunay Sukaina, stop it, enough. This is the shirt of Aba Abdullah. This is the bloody shirt of Aba Abdullah. I will have it until the day of judgment, until God judges between me and these people. Then Imam Zainul Abidin said, get prepared, we have to leave. Some people said, Yabna Rasulullah, O son of Rasulullah, stay a little longer. Perhaps the ladies want to stay next to the graves a little longer. He said to them, I cannot, and I cannot leave the ladies any longer. I think my Amma, my auntie Zainab cannot survive any longer. رحم الله من نادى وحسينا ومظلوما وغريبا زينب تقول يا داعي بعد ندري ايش بقالي. You want to take me to Medina? What is in Medina? These are the words of Zainab Salamullah alayha. وش خلفت عند الليالي بيت وصفا ومن الزلم خالي. What do the nights have for me? House is empty of all the men. بالأمس كانوا معي واليوم قد رحلوا وخلفوا في سويد القلب نيرانا. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم بدماء شهدائنا يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم. إلهي يا حميد بحق محمد، يا عالي بحق علي، يا فاطر بحق فاطمة، يا محسن بحق الحسن، ويا قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين وبحق التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. استجب دعواتنا يا الله. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة يا الله وبعد المعصية وعرفان الحرمة. اللهم املأ قلوبنا بالعلم والمعرفة. اللهم طهر بطوننا من الحرام والشبهة يا الله. اللهم اجعل عواقب أمورنا خيرا. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. All together. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه ومقوية سلطانه. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات الشهداء والصالحين. رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله.